She said Tyler was a good kid despite having limited contact with his father, and that Emma would be fine growing up without Kenneth's version of parenting. The most important thing I learned from all this is that Kenneth's treatment of me wasn't personal, and it wasn't because I had done something wrong. It was a deliberate pattern of financial control that he had used before and would probably use again with someone else. I'm doing better now financially and emotionally. Emma is thriving and has started crawling everywhere. I'm looking into online college programs so I can get a degree while still being available for her care. I still get angry sometimes thinking about how unnecessary all the stress and struggle was during my pregnancy. Kenneth could have easily afforded to help but chose not to, even knowing it was hurting his wife and unborn child. But I'm grateful that Patricia spoke up and that I was able to get a fair outcome in the end. Update 2: I need to share what happened recently because it shows how right Patricia was about Kenneth and his patterns. Emma is now almost 10 months old and has started pulling herself up to stand. She's getting into everything and keeps me busy, but she's also more fun every day. I had been thinking that maybe the worst of dealing with Kenneth was behind us since the child support was settled and he hadn't tried to contact us. 3 weeks ago, I got a message from an unknown number asking if I was Lisa and if I had been married to Kenneth. The message came from a woman named Kelly who said she was dating Kenneth and wanted to ask me some questions about our marriage. I was hesitant to respond at first, but something about the message seemed familiar. Kelly sounded confused and a little desperate, which reminded me of how I had felt during my pregnancy. I agreed to meet her for coffee. Kelly turned out to be 24, just 2 years younger than I had been when I met Kenneth. She worked as a receptionist at a dental office and had been dating Kenneth for about 8 months. She had recently moved into his house, the same house I had lived in during our marriage. Kelly said Kenneth had told her I had mental health issues during my pregnancy and had left suddenly without explanation. He claimed I had been unstable and demanding, wanting him to pay for expenses that weren't his responsibility. He said I had tried to manipulate him by threatening to leave if he didn't give me money. But Kelly was having experiences that didn't match Kenneth's story about me. She said he had implemented the same financial system with her that he had used with me. Same percentage split on rent, same receipt tracking system, same strict separation of personal expenses. Kelly made much less money than I had, only about $22,000 a year. Even with Kenneth paying the larger share of housing costs, she was struggling to cover her portion of shared expenses plus her personal costs. She had already started skipping meals and avoiding social activities to save money. The reason Kelly had reached out to me was because Kenneth had started talking about having a baby. He said it was time to start a family and that Kelly would make a good mother. When she expressed concerns about affording a baby on their current budget, he assured her that he would pay his fair share of all baby expenses. Kelly had asked Kenneth what counted as baby expenses versus personal expenses, given how strictly he categorized their current shared costs. His answer was exactly what I would have expected. Baby expenses were things the baby directly used or consumed. Everything related to Kelly's body, health, or comfort would remain her personal responsibility. Kelly said she had been researching the cost of pregnancy and childbirth and realized she couldn't afford her share, especially if Kenneth applied the same logic he used for their current expenses. She had started to panic about the financial implications but was afraid to tell Kenneth she wasn't ready. I told Kelly everything about my experience with Kenneth, from the pregnancy expenses to the legal battle over child support. I explained how the financial control had escalated during pregnancy and how I had been forced to seek help from strangers to afford basic necessities. Kelly listened without interrupting, taking notes on her phone. When I finished, she said everything made sense now. She had been wondering why someone would leave a stable marriage while pregnant, but now she understood that the marriage hadn't been stable at all. I connected Kelly with Patricia, who was able to share Sandra's story as well. Kelly learned that she was the third woman Kenneth had used this financial system with, and that the pattern always escalated when pregnancy was involved. Kelly also learned something I hadn't known. Patricia told her that Kenneth had significant savings and investments, much more than he had ever let on to his wives. The financial stress he put us through wasn't because money was tight. It was a deliberate choice to maintain control and test our compliance with his rules. Kelly made the decision to leave Kenneth before getting pregnant. She had been staying with a friend while looking for her own apartment. Patricia offered to help with moving expenses and first month's rent, just as she had helped me with legal fees. Kenneth's reaction to Kelly leaving was different from his reaction to me. With me, he had been cold but relatively controlled. With Kelly, he became openly angry and vindictive. He sent her dozens of text messages calling her ungrateful and accusing her of using him for financial support. He also started contacting Kelly's work, claiming she had stolen items from his house. Her boss was understanding when Kelly explained the situation, but Kenneth's calls were disruptive and embarrassing for her. Kelly had to block Kenneth's number and social media accounts. She also had to be careful about where she went because he had started showing up at places he knew she might be, like her gym or the grocery store she usually shopped at. The harassment got bad enough that Kelly filed for a restraining order. The judge granted a temporary order and scheduled a hearing for a permanent one. Kenneth's behavior toward Kelly made me realize how controlled his reaction to me leaving had been, probably because he knew I was pregnant and there would be legal consequences for harassing the mother of his child. During Kelly's restraining order hearing, Kenneth's lawyer tried to argue that Kelly was exaggerating the harassment and that Kenneth was just trying to recover his property. but Kelly had saved all the text messages and documented every incident of him showing up uninvited. The judge granted the permanent restraining order and warned Kenneth that any further contact would result in criminal charges. Kenneth's lawyer looked embarrassed by his client's behavior and the weak arguments they had to make in court. After the hearing, Patricia approached me with an idea. She thought Sandra, Kelly, and I should document Kenneth's pattern of behavior in case other women encountered him in the future. She suggested we put together a detailed account of his financial control tactics and emotional manipulation that could be shared if needed. Patricia had been doing some research and learned that financial abuse often follows predictable patterns, especially with men who target younger women with less economic stability. She thought Kenneth fit the profile perfectly and would likely continue this behavior with future partners. We decided to create a document outlining Kenneth's specific tactics, from the initial financial agreement through the escalation during pregnancy and the aftermath of leaving. We included details about his business income manipulation and his tendency to harass women who left him. Patricia also suggested we contact a local domestic violence organization to ask if they wanted information about Kenneth's pattern for their records. The counselor we spoke with said financial abuse was common but often hard to prove, and that our documentation could be valuable if other women reported similar experiences. Kelly has been doing better since getting away from Kenneth. She found a decent apartment she can afford on her own and has been promoted to office manager at the dental practice. She's also started taking online classes to become a dental hygienist, which would significantly increase her earning potential. I've been accepted into an online bachelor's degree program starting next month. The child support payments make it possible for me to work part-time and go to school while still caring for Emma. I never thought I would be able to afford college, but getting away from Kenneth opened up possibilities I hadn't considered. Sandra has also stayed in touch with all of us. She said it was helpful to talk with other women who had been through similar experiences with Kenneth. Tyler, her son, is doing well in high school and has no interest in having a relationship with Kenneth, which Sandra says is probably for the best. The most disturbing thing we've learned through sharing our experiences is how calculated Kenneth's behavior was. Every aspect of the financial control system was designed to create dependency and prevent us from leaving. The escalation during pregnancy wasn't accidental, it was when we were most vulnerable and least able to support ourselves independently. I'm grateful that Kelly reached out before getting pregnant and that she was able to get away before experiencing what Sandra and I went through. I'm also glad we were able to document Kenneth's pattern in case it helps protect other women in the future. Emma is doing great and has no idea how complicated her early life was. She's pulling herself up on furniture and trying to climb everything. I can't imagine having to justify the cost of every item she needs to someone who sees childcare as a luxury expense. Update 3. This will be my last update because I think I've shared everything useful about my situation with Kenneth. Emma is now 11 months old and I wanted to wrap up the story since some people have been asking for more updates. The restraining order against Kenneth for harassing Kelly has been working. He hasn't tried to contact her directly since the court hearing. However, we learned that he's been asking mutual acquaintances about her and trying to get information about where she works and lives now. Kelly's friend who works at the bank mentioned that Kenneth had come in asking questions about Kelly's account, claiming he needed to verify some financial information for insurance purposes. The bank employee didn't give him any information, but it showed he was still trying to monitor Kelly's finances even after she left. Patricia decided to have a direct conversation with Kenneth about his behavior. She drove to his house and confronted him about the pattern of financial abuse with 3 different women. According to Patricia, Kenneth became defensive and claimed we were all lying about our experiences to make him look bad. Kenneth told Patricia that modern women expect men to pay for everything without contributing equally to relationships. He said he had learned from his father's mistakes and refused to be financially taken advantage of. He claimed that Sandra, Kelly, and I had all tried to manipulate him by using pregnancy or the threat of leaving to get money we hadn't earned. Patricia said she had never seen Kenneth so angry. He accused her of interfering in his personal life and told her to stop contacting his ex-wives and girlfriends. He said if she continued to cause problems for him, he would cut contact with her completely. Patricia told him that losing contact with him wouldn't be a loss at this point, and that she was more concerned about protecting future women from his financial abuse. She said Kenneth seemed genuinely shocked that someone in his family was calling his behavior abusive rather than financially responsible. 2 weeks after Patricia's visit, Kenneth contacted my lawyer asking about supervised visitation with Emma. This was the first time he had expressed any interest in seeing his daughter since I left. The timing, right after Patricia confronted him, seemed suspicious. My lawyer explained that Kenneth would need to establish paternity through the court and then petition for visitation rights. Since he had made no effort to see Emma in the first 11 months of her life, and had fought against paying adequate child support, his chances of getting unsupervised visitation were limited. Kenneth's lawyer sent several messages claiming that I was alienating Emma from her father and that Kenneth had always wanted a relationship with his daughter. They argued that I had prevented contact by leaving without giving him a chance to be involved. My lawyer responded with documentation showing that Kenneth had never attempted to visit Emma or ask about her well-being. The only communications from Kenneth had been through lawyers fighting child support payments. There was no evidence of any desire for a relationship with his daughter. The paternity and visitation case is still pending, but my lawyer thinks Kenneth will eventually drop it. She believes he's more interested in creating hassle for me than actually spending time with Emma. The cost of pursuing supervised visitation, combined with the inconvenience of scheduled visits, usually discourages fathers who aren't genuinely interested in parenting. Meanwhile, I started college classes last month and I'm finding the coursework challenging but manageable. The daycare where I work has been flexible about my schedule, letting me bring Emma with me while taking some classes online during work hours. Kelly finished her dental hygienist program and got a job that pays almost twice what she was making before. She's been able to save money for the first time in years and is planning to buy a house next year. She said leaving Kenneth was the best decision she ever made, despite how scary it was at the time. Sandra's son Tyler graduated high school and got accepted to several colleges. Sandra said she was proud that she had been able to support his education as a single mother, despite Kenneth contributing only the minimum required child support over the years. The three of us have stayed in touch and sometimes get together for dinner or coffee. Our kids get along well, and it's been good for Emma to have other children around. Patricia usually joins us when we meet up, and she's become like an aunt to all our children. Last week I got a message from another woman asking if I had been married to Kenneth. Her name was Rebecca and she said she had heard about our situation through a friend who worked with Kelly. Rebecca had been dating Kenneth for about 2 months and was starting to see signs of the financial control we had all experienced. Rebecca said Kenneth had already started talking about moving in together and implementing a shared budget system. He had explained his philosophy about personal financial responsibility and equal contribution to household expenses. When Rebecca expressed concerns about affording her share of expenses in his house, Kenneth suggested she get a second job or reduce her personal spending. I put Rebecca in touch with Kelly and Patricia so she could hear about all our experiences with Kenneth. She decided not to move in with him and ended the relationship the following week. Kenneth apparently didn't take the breakup well and accused Rebecca of listening to lies from his bitter ex-wives. Rebecca's experience confirmed what we had suspected. Kenneth was actively looking for his next target and using the same techniques that had worked on Sandra, Kelly, and me. Young women with limited financial resources who were impressed by his apparent stability and success. Patricia has been keeping track of Kenneth's dating activity through social media and mutual friends. She said he seems to cycle through relationships quickly now, probably because women are leaving sooner once they understand his financial system. I've been thinking about whether to pursue full custody of Emma rather than risking future visitation battles with Kenneth. My lawyer thinks I have a strong case given his complete lack of involvement in Emma's life and his pattern of financial abuse. The documentation we've gathered about his behavior with multiple women would support an argument that he's not capable of providing appropriate care for a child. For now, I'm focusing on school and raising Emma. She's walking now and getting into everything. She's a happy, healthy baby who has no idea that her father exists. I want to keep it that way for as long as possible. I never expected my story to involve helping other women avoid the same situation, but I'm glad Rebecca reached out before getting too involved with Kenneth. I hope our experiences will help other women recognize the warning signs of financial abuse before it escalates. Emma and I are doing well on our own. We have a good support system with Patricia, Sandra, Kelly, and the other friends I've made over the past year. I'm optimistic about finishing school and building a better life for both of us. I won't be posting more updates unless something major happens with the custody situation. Thank you to everyone who offered support and advice throughout this process. It helped more than you know.